G'day. Aquaponics, it's awesome, especially when you're looking at a small little system that you can put almost anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I built my little barrel system. It's just a brand new little system that I built so I can show people a few differences on how to do a few different little things and different options on how to do it. And you know, I've got my bigger system over here that works really, really well. Just want to be able to show you some options and show you how to do it and show you how easy it can be. I've used a jigsaw, a drill, and a handsaw, as in like a hacksaw. And that's all the tools that I've actually needed. So, and I was able to do it all by my lonesome. So anyone can do it. You do need to know how to use those tools, but if you know how to use them, anyone can build this. So I'll show you and I'll run you through how I built my little barrel aquaponics system. So we're going to be using the drill with a hole saw on it. It's a small one. And a jigsaw. So when you're using power tools, safety glasses. You've got to make sure you're protecting yourself. And take off all jewellery, make sure nothing can actually get caught. And if you're like me, well, I used to have long hair, so pulling it all back and off. To start with, I'm going to drill some corner holes with my hole saw. And I've got, this is the hole that's going to be for the area for the fish to be able to see, do everything we want. And on this side, I'm actually going to have a viewing hole, a viewing section. And I'll be putting some perspex on and having that nice and pretty. And while we've got all the power tools out, we're also going to be cutting up this drum into making into a grow bed. So if you remember, I said we can cut it straight down the middle that way, and have that as one grow bed on either side, or we can cut it in these two sections here, so top and bottom. This is what I've chosen to do for how I want my setup to be. So now I'm going to get to it. So we've cut up the fish tank part. Now we're doing my grow bed. So this is one grow bed. This is the second one, 30 centimeters deep. Again, I'm just drilling the hole so that I can start off my jigsaw. And safety goggles, eh? So, this is one of the grow beds that we're going to be doing, and I'll be setting up both two of them. One is flood and drain and one is a constant flow. But I wanted to show you, I mentioned before that you can lose the structural integrity of the barrels once you cut them. And if I had have cut this long ways, so cutting the top off, right off, that would actually start to buckle out. There is enough structural integrity in this size, so it's not going to move too much. But it can if you cut it the other way. The other thing, we've just gone through and cut it with the jigsaw, and you'll see we've got all of these edgings. So we want to make sure that we get that cleaned up. Now, personally, I'm a bit of a cheapskate, so I just use the knife. You can buy a deburring tool. It really depends on how much work you're going to do and how comfortable you are with a knife. Sharp object, please be careful. But it is, seriously, it is taking, being very careful, finding your way of doing it and cutting off. You're just wanting to make sure that you've got rid of all sharp edges and all of this little crappy stuff. You can start to see how they've now got lovely blue on here. We do not want any of that in our grow bed or our fish tank. So that's what we want to do. We want to go and get that off on my grow bed. And this is the fish tank that we've cut up. So I want to make sure I neaten all of these edges off here too. I want to make sure it's nice, easy, clean and safe. Okay, so that is my next step. Alrighty, so we're looking at some of the plumbing and piping that can go into your grow bed, and I've got three different parts here. I'm trying to find the right balance. We've got the guard for the grow bed here. We've got the standpipe plumbing here, and if you're wanting a bell siphon, then we have the bell here. So let's have a look at the three different parts for your bell siphon. Why do we have a guard? The guard stops the gravel from going from the grow bed into your plumbing, okay, into the rest of the system. So we've got a cap that we pop on the bottom of it. You can see it's got the hole pre-drilled to fit the standpipe plumbing. So for me in this case it was a 25mm plumbing part that I'm using with a 20mm piping. So I've been able to get the right hole for that, drill the right hole for me for that one into the 90mm. Now the reason why we have the cap that we place on there is that it helps us to keep everything in place and not falling out. So we screw in, hard to see, we've got the holes already marked out and done in. So when we screw that in, and that will then be sitting in our grow bed, that will mean screwed in means no one can accidentally lift up our guard and let all of the gravel out. So that's why we screw it in. I used to bolt it in, but have seen a way. It was Rob Gray, one of his YouTubes, where I saw he screwed it in. I thought that was so much better. So away with the bolts and in with the screws, and these are marine grade screws that I'm using. And this plumbing ends up going on the inside of the guard, and that comes through the bottom here. So we have our O-rings, and so that then moves us on to the next part. We have an O-ring on this side, and then we have the grow bed, and then we have the piping underneath. So if you're imagining moving on to the standpipe part now, we have an O-ring on this side, and you literally have, whoops, this part goes in here. It's going to be so much easier to show you on the grow bed, but basically that comes into here, O-ring on the other side, through the grow bed, and then attaching to that piping there. The standpipe will vary depending on the size of your grow bed, the height of your grow bed. So you measure up the piping that you want. You want to make sure that you've got at least 5 centimeters from the top, that you've got the dry gravel, dry media, so you don't get algae and other problems happening. This is just a bend. If you're having the bell siphon, you do want to make sure you've got a bend elbow there, just to make sure you get the water lock happening and you don't get any airlocks. And this is the bell siphon. This is the bell that we use. You can see that it's been cut in 3 different sections there, and we've just got the lid on top. Now this is 65mm, it is pressure pipe, and what will happen is that will go on top of the standpipe. So the standpipe goes inside here, inside there, and that fits into the plumbing on this side, and we'll be able to see it so much clearer when I'm actually putting it together and showing you. But at the moment I'm just showing you the different parts and pieces that don't want to sit together in this wind. So yeah, it's pretty cool, but you do need to make sure that you get the right heights for your grow bed. So I'll show you how I've measured that up in the next one. Alrighty, so when we don't have the bell, so we're not doing a bell siphon, we're just doing a constant flow system. It depends on how you want to set it up, but one of the options is to still have your guard here. So we've got this is my 90mm, and I've just drilled the holes in there to let water flow through the bottom, and it will fill up to the point of the standpipe. And the cap, in screwing, trying to get it to sit, in screwing the cap into the pipe, it just gives you that extra bit of protection to make sure that nobody can lift the guard out. We use the guard to stop all the gravel from getting into the piping, all the gravel from the grow bed. We don't want that in the piping. So this is a good way of being able to keep it out with that guard. And as you'll see, so this is the hole. This is just an upside down one of the barrel grow beds I'm doing. What I would do is I would have the O-ring here, put that on top, then moving on to the standpipe plumbing. That would then go in there, and then a standpipe on top. And this up here is the level in which the amount of water would be going into that grow bed. This one, so you've got the male and the female fitting. The male goes underneath. So it would actually be turned up the other way around at the moment because it's upside down. But we're just pretending at the moment. So that would go underneath the grow bed and screw that in really tightly. And this is some of the plumbing that you can use coming out. It depends on the size of the grow bed. It depends on the type of plumbing you're wanting to use. There are many variants, but making sure that you've got a guard in place, some type of guard to stop the gravel from going into the rest of the system. Using things like your O-rings is a really good idea to make sure that you don't have leaks anywhere. And yeah, screwing things in here is also another really good idea to make sure that people don't accidentally go, hey, how does this work? Pick it up and pull it all out and ruin your plumbing and your piping and your system. So that's the plumbing if you're not wanting to use the bell siphon. Okay, so this is one of my grow beds that I'm doing. And whether or not I choose for this to be a flood and drain or a constant flow, I can use the same type of plumbing for the base. Now, this is just a 90mm cap that I've already put a hole through. And what that will do, oopsie, that means I can put a guard up to make sure that I don't get any gravel or anything like that coming in. So whether or not it's going to be a bell siphon or we're just going to have it as a constant flow, same process. What we will be doing, so this is a 20 mil pipe and the fitting that goes into it, and I've made sure that I've got an O-ring on it, and it will literally go through there and in there. And we'll also have an O-ring underneath, but at the moment I've still got to drill a hole, but that's going to be how high the water can get up within the grow bed. So you make sure that you put everything in a measure where you would like it to be. Now this is the height that it's going to be. I'm very comfortable with that. I think that was about 20 centimetres. Actually, I think like 23 centimetres in height. So that's okay. Now, where do I want the hole to go? Don't just go drilling a hole. I'm thinking, you can see here how we've got the higher and the lower. We want this to be flat, flush, flat as much as possible. So that is okay because I'm going to have the water coming in here, and that is perfect for me. And I can measure that, or I can go by how I am. This is hole drill. I've got several different types of hole drills, but this one is 25mm for this particular hole. Sweet. Now we need to get all of this crap off, but you'll see, oopsie, that this will fit nicely and snugly through here, which is exactly what we're wanting. Okay, so where is my knife? That is a very good question, Candy. Where is my knife? Yeah. My lovely cameraman is getting me my very sharp knife. And we're just going to take that edging off to make sure that it will have a nice snug fit. We don't want leaks, especially in a weaker part of the system. And that is also fine underneath. Fold up knife, do not leave knife open. This is how simple things can be with a little bit of preparation. So I have the O-ring here, but I want it underneath. And I'll show you how to make the guard. What we want this to be, oh my gosh, as tight as, I've got silicone on my hands, tight as possible. Nope, not tight enough. Keep going. You might be able to see that it's almost there. O-ring. And then screwing that in. We want this whole section to be as tight as possible. Now, with the guard, we will be having holes in it, but at the moment I'm really just wanting to show you the whole plumbing aspect. You'll see that there is a slight little elevation. That's because of the O-ring. Now, I have and I'll flip it over so I can show you. So that will be sitting in here, and we'll have the guard on the outside. Now, bear with me. Don't throw that in there because that's been slickened. Now, I keep trying to move it and ain't enough room. That's alright. Okay, so we're wanting to put an O-ring on this side as well. And then we have the female component of that. And we're screwing this on. So we want both of these to be very, very tight to prevent leaks. That is some of the basic fundamental plumbing of setting up your grow bed. We'll be able to show you the rest in the next video. Alrighty, so we're now putting plumbing into this little grow bed for our barrel aquaponics. Now, when you're wanting to know the size of what you're doing, you do need to make sure that you've got your measuring tape and your measure. So we want to have, a little bit of space up here. If you allow for the 1 centimetre of space where there's going to be no gravel, and then you allow a couple of centimetres, generally about 5 centimetres, where it's what we have dry gravel. So we don't want that area to get wet, but we want everything else to get wet. Whether that's a flood and drain system or a constant flow system, you do want to have a large wet area because that's where your bacteria is, so that's your big filter. But you want to have a dry area as well, that way you don't get any algae growing on your grow bed. Okay, so in this particular grow bed on this side, I'm going to have it just as a constant flow, meaning the water is constantly flowing through and it's going to be constantly flooded. Okay, and not every vegetable likes that, but most do. Most are fine with that, but some, especially root crops, don't really like that. And we've got in here, we'll show you the flood and drain one soon, but we have the guard, and what this is this, we pop this around our plumbing and it stops all of the gravel from getting into our plumbing. So we've got to make it and have this ready. So with this particular one, I've just drilled it, just using the largest drill bit I had and making sure that none of the clay is going to be able to fit through those particular holes. And I have screwed, you can see that there's little markings here, so I've identified where each screw hole needs to be. So here we've got 3, and here we've got 2, and here are the screw holes. It holds it in place so that no one can walk past and go, hey, what does this do? Yank it out, and then messes up what you're doing. So I used to bolt everything in, and I have to give credit. I saw a YouTube of Rob Gray, and he suggested the screwing it in. So yay to him, great thought. So that's what we will be doing. And you can see on the bottom, we've got the cap. This we attach within our plumbing, and we want to make sure it's all worked together so that it doesn't fall out. So how high, and this is our standpipe, I should go with that one first, isn't it? We've got the 3 parts. You've got your male fitting that will go through the grow bed, and we'll screw it at the other end. We have the pipe, and this is a reducer. So this is a 20 mil pipe, and it's a 25 to a 20 reducer. This just allows for the water to come into your standpipe quicker. How do I know how high I want it to be? Well, if that's going to be too high, right? Because there's no area for the dry media, is there? This is just telling you. But it's actually going to be sinking down this much down into the grow bed. So after you measure how high you want it to be, this is a 30 centimetre depth, which is what we do recommend for good root structure as well as stability, and just so you've got enough bacteria within your grow bed happening. You then just go through and you deduct how much it's going to be, and this can possibly even still be a bit shorter than what it is. But that's okay, because we're just demonstrating and full grow bed and what you're going to do. You'll see on this particular male fitting, I've got an O-ring. Sometimes you can buy them together, and sometimes you have to buy them separately. Just making sure you do know to do that. The first step, we've already got, let's move the guard out of the way. We've already got our hole here that we drilled, which fits in nice and snug, but we've got the O-ring on this side, and we'll have an O-ring underneath it as well. So we want to put the guard here, and then put our fitting coming in next. but we want to make sure that we've got the O-ring at the bottom. Okay, and you can see I've taken all of the rough edges off, so there's no sharp edges here. In fact, I've got a spare O-ring. I think you can't have too many personally. I'm going to pop this back where it was. Screw this into the guard. It's a nice tight fit, which is excellent. And you do want to get it as tight and as low as you can get it, because this is what's going to cause the suction happening if you're doing it as a flood and drain. As I don't want any leaks, this is why I'm putting an O-ring on this side. This is the key O-ring, the one on here is extra. And then we can just screw this into the hole on this side. Alright. And I can feel that's gone through. Now I need to move my screws out of here. So we have pockets. And we're going to keep the standpipe out as well for the minute. Cover that over, and if you're doing it on a big aquaponics system, you're going to have to get underneath it. Okay, second, or in my case third, O-ring here helps with the leaks, and then we're screwing, this is the female part on. And nice and tight, and what that's doing as I'm putting pressure on both, that's screwing it in from underneath as well. And that is the outlet. So this is where the water is going to be coming in, and this is where the water is going to be coming out. This is our standpipe, which shows how high it's going to be. Now, that's possibly a centimetre too high, so I'm just going to cut off an extra centimetre there. Make sure it's not too high. And with the guard, this is where we reline up our points, screw these in, and what this does, water will come in here and it will come up, and as soon as it hits this reducer, it'll flow in there and into the fish tank or into your sump or however you got your system set up. That is as complicated as it can be, or as simple as you want it. You can also make this a lot more complicated. So this is for a constant flow setup. Let's have a look at another video and see what we can do about making this into a flood and drain. Okay, so we have our pump here at the moment. We need to understand how pumps do work, and we need to make sure that whatever pump you buy, it's got enough pressure to be able to get up as high. So this is called the head height, however high you need it to be pumping. So I'm needing this to pump up about 1 metre, so I had to get a higher flow rate to be able to do that. Now, pumps usually have a couple of components. This is often, there's a filter here. I've taken this part out just so that it flows a bit more smoothly, but this is one place. They're all pretty much the same components, but they do vary a little bit on how you do it. This pump also is a twist. Now this is a propeller shaft. You want to make sure that you don't break it. It's, oh my god, it's so easy to break that. And this is the propeller. Every month you'll need to take this out and give it a bit of a wipe down and clean, because it gets very, very grubby, very, very grotty. And the same with in here. I have an old toothbrush that I use to clean the inside of the propeller shaft. That's right here, as well as the hole for where it goes. And there's an O-ring that keeps it all together. So popping it all back, twisting it, and it's back in place. How awesome is that? Easy, but you do need to maintain it. Some pumps, like this one, have different, you can adjust the flow rate. I'm going to keep it on maximum and see how that goes. I'm also going to be adding valves throughout the system to be able to see where things are at. So at the moment, I worked out how deep this tank is, and I've just got aquarium piping. Just slides on nice and easy, and we want the T valve here. The T valve means I can add a piece of pipe to go back into the tank, and I can cut that at the level I want, but I will also be adding the valve here. so I can adjust if I want to open that or close it more. And this pipe will then be going up into my filter, which I'm about to do now. Okay, we can see in this video we've got the guard in place. We've got the cap right down the bottom that's attached to here and it's screwed in. And we lean over it and we've got the standpipe and everything like that in there. We can pop the bell on that, but at the moment that's just showing you that's going to be the maximum water height from what I've put in. And you'll see if I put the camera down here, we've got the guard coming a little bit over because we don't want any of the gravel getting in there. And underneath, we'll see how we go with the... Yep, so you can see the underneath part. I've got the O-ring and then the female join there. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so my excuse me, filter part at the moment, as I said, I haven't got this particular grow bed connected, but this pipe is coming straight up from the pump, which is in a tank up here, and I've just used a irrigation fitting there. Now I need to still put a catch on here to stop that from moving, and in the top here you'll see the water is now coming out. This is, I've put a nut on here so it's not going to move. The two valves I've got it on either side, I did end up siliconing them in to make sure that they don't leak at all, because they did leak, and I still have a nut on the inside of both of them too. Now this is an empty filter, I have not put anything in there, and what I will be popping in is a lot of that shade cloth that I've got down there, as well as some of the bacteria that I've got in my sump over there from that aquaponics system. I have some coldness 1 bioballs in the sump, so I'll be moving some of them in there, and that will then seed this filter and this system with bacteria. But at the moment, until I've actually done the plumbing on this, which will be done in the next little while, I don't want to be putting bacteria in there, because I'm going to be adding tap water which is chlorinated, and the chlorine will kill the bacteria. So once I've got all of the water filled up completely and it's at the right levels, I'll then gas it off for 24 hours. So that just means letting it run and letting it aerate. That'll gas off any of the excess chlorine. From then I can then add the shade cloth and also a layer of matting in there just to catch any of the solid waste, and that is the primary focus of our filters. In this particular case, we have two things about a filter. The mechanical waste, which is to remove solid waste from the system, which is your radial flow filter, your solid separator, a piece of matting that will be in an aquarium, and I will show you an aquarium filter soon. The other part of a filter is the biological filter, which is what converts where the bacteria live and what converts all of the ammonia into nitrite and then nitrate. Now in our big aquaponic system up the back here, this is predominantly my biological filter. I do have some in these buckets here as well, but that's a different type of medium, but it still holds the bacteria. So this is my filtration. This is the main filter, and where all of my bacteria live is in here. And we have to excuse the fact we've got really big gusts of wind at the moment, so I've moved my silver beet, which will be harvested tomorrow. But yeah, so this is where the biological component is, and with this little system over here, I've bought the expanded clay, and that will be going in these two grow beds, the expanded clay, and I've got a mix of gravel as well. That will be my primary biological filter will be the grow beds, but I will have a small amount of biological filtration in this little trickle filter. But the main purpose of this is just to remove solid waste. And that's because, as you can see, we've got the pump down here. This is going to pump all water and waste straight up into the system. Now, I could pop that on a brick and have it pump in from there, and that way it keeps all the solid waste at the bottom, but the fish will kick it up anyway, because the fish are going to be swimming around. And as you saw when we're dumping the water in from the flood and drain, it's also going to mix everything up. So I kind of, to me, I see it's a little bit of irrelevant whether it's on a brick or just straight on the drum there. So that's why I've set up a separate little filtration system up here just purely to catch all of that solid waste from the fish before it goes into the grow beds. We don't want the solid waste from your fish tank, from your fish, going into the grow beds. It will clog up your grow beds, it will turn smelly, it will turn anaerobic, and even in a flood and drain system it will still turn anaerobic, which means no oxygen, and it will start to get really smelly, and it will start to kill off areas of your grow bed, kill off the bacteria. And if all of it or enough of it is covered, and then any of that dead back, because once you've got an anaerobic area, sorry my hand here, when you've got an anaerobic area within your grow bed, it will start to spread, and that has a third bacteria in there which actually removes the nitrate from the system and also removes oxygen from the system. It can only, that third bacteria, we don't really want in our aquaponics system because it only works in an anaerobic area, so when there's no oxygen in that space. That's why we have anaerobic filtration within a marine aquarium, because there's big thick areas within marine aquariums, especially their filters, that are anaerobic, so no oxygen, and that removes a lot of the nitrates. So a bit different setup, but it happens there. In the aquaponics system, what will happen is if there is any anaerobic area, it will then spread throughout the grow bed, and if that bacteria and that low oxygen or no oxygen environment or water ends up getting back into your fish tank, you've now got a problem of low oxygen for your fish. So we really want to avoid that. So, yeah, okay, let's move on to the next part. G'day. Radio, so we've had this running now. She's been doing great, right balances, and we're about to have that flood and drain one drain out any moment into the fish tank down there. No leaks. By playing with the valves, I've had everything working perfectly. It's now time for me to add the expanded clay. And why am I haven't also, the other thing I haven't done is I haven't put any of the filter medium in here yet, just purely because of what I'm about to do now. I'm filling this bin up with water because the clay here, it's dusty, dirty. We've got to give it a really good wash to get all of that dirt off, which is really awesome. So because I'm using the town water, tap water to do that, and also to make sure that it gets enough water in there, gets saturated and actually starts to drop, because otherwise it will float. So we're wanting to make sure all of that's happening. Awesome. The drain part's happening now. Woohoo! You can see it in here, fill up, maybe not. Yeah, so we're wanting to make sure that we get this fully clean and get it ready for the bacteria, basically. So yeah, just give it a good wash. So this is the expanded clay water that I was showing you that we needed to make sure you clean, and it's straight out of the bag. And this is why we don't want it in our aquaponics system. So we need to make sure that we wash it first and then we pop it in our system so that we can get rid of all of that excess stuff. So this is the solid waste filter that I popped up here just to catch any waste, and you can see I've got that running now to catch up any of the extra dust that might be in the system. Doesn't seem to be any at the moment. I did a good job of washing it all, but I just wanted to be able to show you that's why we say wash things first.